But no, Beth, your goes crashing down. Determination, the suffering, the ability to... And she's unleashed everything in this attack. See just how much that win means to him. All the marbles. Kayla versus Allison, and to the line. Kayla Laguna takes the victory. Hello everybody and welcome back to more CVRcade World Cup Racing. As always, my name is Jesper Anker, and here for the next two zones K and L, I'll be guiding you through all the action as it unfolds live. Currently, you're seeing one of the newer courses that have been introduced into the production build. It's called Electric Rush, and it's a bit different. It'll make its maiden voyage here today in the CVRcade World Cup Racing. We're racing for that $25,000 prize purse. We're in the bracketed session. Today's racing marks the beginning of week 2. You know, week 1, week 2, week 3. You're racing it for the seeding, because coming into the playoffs, coming into the tournament in week 4, that's where the real money is going to get distributed. So different racers from all across the world, they've been racing week 1 at the top. I think Kayla Laguna is currently sitting at the top of the leaderboard. She's taking a rest today. That opens the door for somebody else to come and knock her down from the top spot. Broadcasting in from across the world are our racers, and first up we're going to have a talk with Velocity Vixen's Carl Axel Sander. Carl, last week you were close to taking a winning... Oh, you can see he's just putting on his headset. Last week, Carl, you were close to taking your first ever Omnium victory. I think you did take one against Nils Heldens. Are we going to see more success from you and the Velocity Vixens this week?
Oh yeah, I think so. I think the team weren't coming in numbers today, but probably, yeah, at some occasion we're probably going to show up in numbers and do something. But yeah, I think it's only me and Jeff today, and we face, at least in the Zone K now, and we're facing a lot of riders. So it's going to be tough racing today.
Electric Rush, what's your first take on this course? Is the first time it's going to be raced? What do you think?
Oh, yeah, it's an interesting course, but I guess it's going to be kind of the same. There's no skill. It's you can't crash, and you will probably keep the inside lane, and it's all about timing that last 500 meters with the Comeback Kid power up. So it's probably business as usual in that kind of way.
I like business as usual. Where do you stand on these fantastical courses, Carl? Because, I mean, you're a cyclist. You're used to seeing the outside, seeing the realistic. What's it like bringing out that inner child racing? Because this, I can tell you, I'm pretty sure it doesn't take a genius to figure out this is not real-life cycling the way it looks.
Oh, yeah. Oh, well, what should I say? When you get into the game, the gaming part of CVRcade, all the strategy, then it's in some way, I guess most of you listening can't understand this, but in some way it kind of makes sense, because it's really like showing that it's a game. It's more than a cycling simulator compared to Swift and so. So yeah, it's not that off in my opinion when having some time getting into the game.
Well, thanks, Carl. Good luck with the racing coming up, starting in 53 seconds. He takes off the headset, and that means business mode. Also broadcasting in today, we've got Quinton Molyneux of Team Cycling in Belgium. He's ready to go. We've got Tim Fulford making a return into the racing as well. You can see him ready to rock and roll. Frank Garcia is currently on the start line, joining the rest from Team CVRcade. Thomas Tibbling, ready to go of Team CCC, the lone representative. And then I think we've got Alison Kubota as well in the broadcast here. Not to forget, oh, you can see Alison pointing to the screen. It's going to be good to see Team Cognition in full display. Then Casey Shum, Team Experimental, racing his preferred zone. How will it pan out? Now, Here we go. No skill event of the day. Electric Rush. We're about to see history being made off the gun. You can see sprinting out of the gate. Because it is the no skill event, you've got Uncrashable, Corner Caper, Quantum Shift. You've seen it before. It allows this massive blob. But with the racing the way it is, you've got to be careful. Because when you look at the back of this, with it being the first time ever raced, people are not used to it. These racers are not used to the twists and turns. You can practice it all offline in your own time. Well, come game time, you need game reps to be able to make those decisions on the fly. As currently we've got Thomas Tibbling just on the back here. He's back in. It is good to see Chris Pritchard of Team Cycling Hub. I believe he's currently streaming his experience over onto the worlds of YouTubes. So if you're watching that and watching this at the same time, I appreciate the love and the feedback you give to the CVRcade World Cup race. And we've got 6 laps of racing on Electric Rush. I think we've already gone through 1 or if not 2 here, so the laps are quick. Kim Fairchild is trying to attack here. Not quite sure what he's attempting to do, as he is off the front with a 2-second gap as he gets brought right back in. And I think what's about to happen to Kim is when you go off the front and initiate attack very quickly, you can find yourself going right through the group. 1 kilometer to go, and Electric Rush has been quite the adrenaline rush right now for these racers. They're swerving left, they're swerving right, and soon the sprint is coming up. And you've seen before riders in these no-skill events, they have practiced the sprints, they understand. That's how short a lap is. One lap is incredibly quick. It's crazy. I'm lost for words how quick that just is. Carl Axel Sander continues to having some issues with his heart rate monitor here as he continues those struggles. But 500 meters to go now. It is time to wind up the engines. Who will be the first one to go? Last lap remaining here. Alison Kubota is on the front. She's in second position. She has won a few of these no-skill events before. 200 meters, 150. No one has gone just yet. But Casey on the front now. He's ready to go. There he goes. There goes Allison as well. There goes Casey. Come on, 200 meters to go. I think Quinton, Allison, Casey is the line. Can see Casey pointing 3-2. He doesn't know. Casey gets second. He just takes Allison on the line. That was close. But with Electric Rush, you never knew quite where you were on that course, as it was continuous left and right. So there you've got the final lap of racing on the screen here. You can see Carl looking around, trying to find his surroundings, trying to just pick out any landmarks that tells you where you are in the course. And Allison was in a good position. She was second, she was third, and as the sprint opens, she times it right. Tim let go of the group, tried to use Combat Kit, was not used correctly there. But you can see Casey, how much do you want this? How badly do you want it? But coming up against Quinton, he finds himself short, and the rivalry continues here in Zone K. Quinton Marnes, Casey Shum at the very top. These two have been trading blows. Congratulations, Quinton. Another stage win to add to the trophy case. How much does it mean, like, going up against Casey and Allison and Carl? Like, because you've been racing these now for 2 weeks in the bracketed session.
Yeah, it means a lot, and even more so because it's a no-skill event. I've always had trouble timing my sprint on these events, and turns out that I'm starting to get the hang of it. Thank God.
Well, in the end, those points do add up. I spoke to you in the pre-race interview that Fantastic Alien Sea is coming up next. You said it's going to be a bit of a tough one here. What makes Fantastic Alien Sea, specifically 4 laps, tougher than usual?
I mean, for me, it's going to be harder because I can't really rely on the technical advantage that I have on somebody else, because you can't crash in the corners in the downhill. And sitting in an uphill stretch is always a lot tougher than on a flat bit. So it's going to matter to sit in, of course, but it's just going to be making sure to not blow up on the uphill and stick with the group.
You raced the last Zone Ks on your own, but you come out here with massive success. You've been up there first, second, third, really fighting for the podium. This week you've got Tim Fulford returning. How much does that mean to the Cycling Hub camp?
It means a lot. I mean, mentally it's going to bring a little bit more rest, because I know I have somebody to count on if if something goes south, and so does Tim. So I think we're just that much stronger with a few extra people in here.
Oh, we'll see. We got Casey in the broadcast as well. Casey, second place in the last race. We saw your facial expression. You weren't quite sure where you were there. I mean, Electric Rush, what was it like that final lap, knowing when to sprint?
Yeah, that was tough. It went a little late. I was watching for people to go, and nobody really went, so I just head down and went. And I timed it pretty well. I think the weird thing about that course is there's enough corners. The draft is a little different in the corners. It kind of slides to the outside hip. So that big rush you get to the line around that corner is a little different. So, I mean, I'm happy with the result. It's still really a timing game in that kind of race. But that course was so small, it kind of messes with your brain, you know, circling laps in, I don't know what it was, 15, 20 seconds. Like 2 to go, somebody could have attacked with 2 laps to go. It happened so fast.
I totally echo that, because even as a broadcast, I was like, wait, what? This is it? Oh, anyway, good racing. Fantastic Alien Sea coming up now, Casey. Your biggest rivalry, which you've been seeing the last few weeks in Zone K, has been Quinten. He now has Tim back. What does this mean to you?
Yeah, this will be a fun one. I mean, Quentin and I will battle it out. There's a lot of strong guys in here. We'll see how it goes. I feel pretty good today. We'll just see how the racing goes. I'm glad that this is a low skill or lower skill event that I can't crash. It's just downhill's tough. So we'll see how it goes.
We'll see how it goes. Thank you, Casey. 10 seconds remaining until the start ramp goes once more. Thomas Tibbling, the sole rider representing Team CCC today, the Swedish Viking. You can see him get ready, and out the gate he goes. Frank Garcia, though, with every single power-up activated, Quantum Shift, Racer's Edge, and his weight lifted. You only get one of each, and he uses it right from the gun to try and initiate a breakaway. We've seen this time and time again from the veteran racer of Team CVRcade. He makes the attack on the front, and then in hopes that somebody goes with him. He's missing his trusty lieutenant today, Kayla Laguna, as she is under the weather from what I understand. Now will be a massive blow to the Team CVR camp. Team Tim Fulford, Chris Pritchard, Quinten Molyneux. Team cycling up here, taking control at the front. They've sent their lieutenant up the road, and you can see the gap to Frank Garcia is coming down. You heard from Casey, this is a low skill event, meaning you cannot crash. Uncrashable is an ability on at all times, and it doesn't really negate the descent, because I mean, even though you can't crash, it means you have to stay even further on top of it, as now Quinten comes to the forefront, and he's the one pushing it down. 500 equalized watts, as both Quinten and Casey said they were feeling good and they were fresh today, and you can see that from Quinten here. This is a very powerful move, and this is forcing the rest in the pack to react to this, because you cannot give Quinten Molyneux 3 seconds. We've seen this before on this exact course. Quinten goes up the road early on, and then he just extends that gap. He understands how to find the correct level of suffering. But looking around here, Frank Garcia did attack early on, but now letting go slowly off the pack. Alison Kubota, Team Cognition, she's off the back of this group, but we've seen this before with Allison. She just rides her own tempo to try and incrementally gain time back and come over the top. And so even though she may be looking like she's losing the draft now, she is such a good time trialist that over time she just increases the watts ever so slightly. Carl Axel Sander here, Velocity Vixen member. He's got Jeff Rooney out here racing this one. No Vibeke Bertram, no Ryan Goldenberg, no Joyce DeSmith, and no Beth York. So Velocity Vixen slightly handicapped in numbers today, which opens the door for the other racers on the front. Quinten Molyneux. He is being chased down by the Swedish Viking, Thomas Tibbling here in the yellow jersey. He seems content on getting a good result today, as he is the sole rider wearing that yellow jersey. And right now he is doing it proud, as somewhere on the couch Ben Shuilong will be watching this, Peter Castro will be watching this, Homer Thompson with a brew in his hand will be watching this, as Thomas Tibbling now continues the chase on the front. Interesting development though, because Quinten is a very strong racer, and choosing to go at this exact moment so early on in 4 laps of racing on Fantastic Alien Sea is a calculation that may or may not pay off, because after this, we've got Mountain Bike by Jesper. We've got Dust Bowl Crit. There's so much racing still to come that Quinton will find himself in a tough position if it comes to a longer race. But now, back in the chasing group, we see that Tim Fulford has found himself on the front, and he is slowing down the affair. The gap is growing out, and so everyone feels like, oh, I'm getting a rest here. So nice that there's a rider on the front. But that rider is Tim Fulford. That rider is Quinton Mullen, as his teammate. And you can see now, as he tries to slow down the chasing group, the gap is growing out. And this is what it means to have your strongest teammates back. Tim was gone last week on work, and now he's back in the racing, and Quinton Molinez reaping the benefits of having the Spitfire Tim Fulford back in amongst the racing. But there's so much racing yet to go. That is just one lap of 4 here in Fantastic Alien Sea. If you bring down the scoreboard, though, we can show you what this means for the race. And Quinton has won the first race. Now he's in a good position to win the second race, as he's got an 8-second gap. Casey comes to the front, and this is where he'll be dreading the fact that he doesn't have that many Team Experimental teammates in there. Tim is in 3rd place, and when we look at the bonus points, Quinton, Casey, this is their preferred zones. Streaming-wise, both Quinton and Casey have audio, and they've got matching kit in the race here, so we can see. Now, I do believe, like last week, we got Alison Kubota on the back as we catch it here. Alison Kubota is coming through the group, and she is sprinting right on through. We've seen her do this before with Frank Garcia on Hypnotic Highway. Quantum shift through the group, every single power-up, and she realizes the danger. Now, speaking of Frank, we had Frank help me out with some commentary on Saturday, and here today, I believe he's back for some more. Frank, we saw you race, you stepped on the bike, or stepped off the bike and joined me in the commentary booth. This move by Quinton, what do you think of it?
I like it. I think with Tim sort of running interference at the front, and we'll see if Ellison can catch, but it looks like Tim's going to try and mess with her rhythm. And there comes Casey. So it's going to be very hard for Tim to mess with two people here. So I think they're just Casey looks to sit on Ellison, it looks like.
How about the energy consumption? Because we've seen you pull this move off quite a lot. I mean, you're the one that usually instigates this solo attack move. How much energy does it sap out of you?
Well, it's interesting. Saturday I did a solo move right from the gun, sort of like I started today, but I was just sort of testing things out, getting ready for commentary. But I did exactly 367 equalized watts for the duration of the event. So it was, right at FTP. And that still means, you got like 3 or 4 minutes of recovery between events, and that means you can get set up for the next one. So unless these guys push him, then he'll be he'll be rested enough, shall we say. Of course, Jesper's tougher course than in terms of energy expension, than Country Rally. So I was racing Country Rally after this. Jesper takes a lot more energy.
And that is the course, of course, the mountain bike course that I created early on. If somebody is new in racing and not understanding the significance of the number 367, I believe that is your 100% effort level, because watts in the game are all equalized to a certain number, and 367 is that force showing that you're pushing out the maximum you can do, or at least for a certain period of time. If you go above it, that's usually a sign of a match being burned. But then I guess the bigger question is, Frank, this early attack, is it worth it? Because you do it so often. Do you, at the end of the zone, do you ever look back and think, maybe I should have sit in?
Sure, right at the end of the race usually is when I think that. But if you get the points, then it's exciting. If you don't get the points, that's a bit difficult.
Always hindsight 2020 when you get to the end. Quinton, though, at this point, 6 seconds up the front here, as we've got a side-by-side shot of Casey on the right, Quinton on the left, and it was just that moment of hesitation from the group further down that allowed Casey to get up. And when you see further back, you can see Tim, you can see Casey, and Tim is gonna just play the enforcer. He's not gonna allow Casey to really come around him. He's not interested in working together. He wants to let Quinten gain that gap, because they're racing for Quinten, I believe, in the team Cycling Hub camp. But seeing these blocks, seeing these moves, Franks, I mean, anything can change in the zone.
Yeah, as you get more people together, it's going to be harder, one, for Tim to block. And you've got some teams here that should be pulling, I would say, on the start of the second lap. Quinten's only got 7 seconds, so that's certainly something you can bring back. As long as he's not out beyond 10, 10's about where you can bring back pretty easily. 15 starts to become really hard, and 20, the guys really got to sort of give it up, or the guys behind have really got to chase hard.
The power-up situation is interesting as well, because I don't believe that Quinten used any of his to initiate this breakaway. Casey has got his, Tim's got his. Everybody is keeping them, so they're, well, except you, Frank, and Allison, they're all keeping them towards the end. Do you think we'll see a try to bridge in the end, or will they just be satisfied with secondary positions?
There's definitely two camps of how to use your power-ups. There's the early camp, to sort of, get the gap and then try and hold it. There's the late camp, which is hang on for all you're worth, and then at the end you can use your power-ups to win. I think in this case, if I was Quinten, I would have used my power-ups to extend this gap out to 15 or 20 seconds. That sort of kills the spirit of the group chasing, because they've got to go really hard. But I think he's counting on Tim at the front here to do the blocking. Nobody's helping Casey, so Casey will probably just sit in.
Casey did just give the elbow on the stream as well, so he's trying to encourage everybody to go on, but this is where it's tough being a solo rider, and having teammates makes a difference, because Chris Pritchard, Cycling Hub, Tim Fulford, Cycling Hub, Quinten Molinez, Cycling Hub, they all came in with a unified plan. But then you look at who else is in this group. Casey is Team Experimental. Carl and Jeff probably should help, as they're the only team here with multiple members. But Frank, when both riders want to win, it gets kind of interesting to have multiple chiefs in the camp.
Yeah, clearly they've let Q go here, and you got some Velocity Vixen people here. I think Carl always plays the suck wheel, which I completely understand, because I was that rider for so long in my career. But in a case like this, he's going to suck wheel all the way to like 4th place, because he's got Carl's got Casey and Tim, and Chris, really. I mean, he could wheel suck his way all to 5th. Those are some great sprinters in this group.
Oh, Casey goes. Weight lifted. This is the move. I think he finally got ahead of Tim, which means that Tim has to match this move from Casey in order to block him. But I guess the question is it too little too late? Because he's using both his power-ups on the descent here, Frank. Do you think he'll be able to get back up?
Yeah, I think he'll go quite rapidly here. Casey's very strong. He's burning a lot of matches looking at his heart rate. So he might find this difficult to do the catch and maintain. Quinten's kind of rested, but we'll see what Carl does. Carl should definitely do some pulling here, but we'll see what he does.
Now, 3rd place, Tim Fulford, he's in chase mode. Frank did say that Carl should be doing some pulling down further back as Tim comes through the corner, the very tight corner that they don't have to worry about. Carl down in 4th, Jeff in 5th. We're not seeing much from the Velocity Vixen camp here, Frank.
No, they're really playing sort of, I don't know how you can play it this safe at this point, but it'll be interesting to see if they just go all out on the last climb. But maybe they are shooting for 5th.
They are getting back in now, though, because what's going to happen is on the front, I don't know if Tim and Quinten are going to work with Casey. Like, Casey is known as one of the riders that does want to work with other racers in the breakaway. But now that we have a 3-man group together, this is the final lap of racing here on Alien Sea, and it's back together on the front. Carl, Chris, and Jeff are chasing further back. Allison just 7 seconds back now. But this is going to play out interesting. You see Quinten blocking Casey. Casey trying to move on through, and Quinten just continuously slamming into the door. Casey is not happy, Frank. What's it like? You're in audio with Casey a lot. What's he like when this happens to him?
Well, I think Casey's going to, end up going fairly hard. I'm not sure what the blocking maneuver accomplishes with the two guys, Quentin and Tim, but it is sort of the signature of Cycling Hub. They'd rather block than go hard, I guess.
Shots fired from Frank Garcia on the commentary. 2 kilometers to go. It's back together. The power-up advantage does fall in Quentin Molinese's advantage. Tim and Casey have both used their salvos, their combinations. Quentin has his left, but you look at the heart rates. They're all up there. And Casey, I think when you block Casey like that, you most of the time get a negative desired impact, because Casey goes, right, if you're going to do that to me, watch me. And that's already starting now. On the right, you can see Casey. He's putting Quentin in the hurt locker here. And Frank, he's literally just riding him off his wheel at this point.
Yes, I think it'll be interesting. I think one of the plays here is to have Tim come around, who's super strong. So I think you'll see, Quentin bury himself and try and get Tim, there you go, into a winning position. And we see it here.
Quantum shift from Tim, allowing him to go right through Quentin. Either that's to try and help. No, we see Quentin now having to use his as well. Tim uses weight lifted. Does Casey go for the counter block? No, he takes the high road, but will that be a lower score in the end? Quentin doesn't look like he's got that much in the legs. Could it be a play for the gallery? But further back, Carl Axel Sander, Jeff Rooney, the combination from both of them to try and get the last few points here. A fantastic Alien Sea, but the legs have been sapped. Velocity Vixen with alternative strategy in their game plan, but we'll have to hear from Carl what they were thinking after this. On the front though, Tim Fulford, as Frank predicted, looks fresh here as he's off the front. This is not Tim's preferred zone, so he does start with a 16-point deficit, but Casey and Quentin maybe a bit too much looking at each other, and that allows a fresh Tim Fulford to go right on through. But the fight for secondary positions is still very much up for grabs here, as Carl Axel Sander has made a regroupment. He used his power-ups, he's on the wheel of Quentin, and coming into the sprint here with 300 meters to go. Every position is wide open. Tim's on the front, Casey behind him. Tim's got a bit more to go here though. 200 meters, Casey. Does he have what it takes to come around a fresh, a strong Tim Fulford? 900,000 equalized watts from Tim. Casey looks up. It's not meant to be. Tim Fulford takes the win for Team Cycling Hub. Casey Shum, second over the line. Well thought. Quentin Molinese ends up securing third place. Shake of the head from Casey. Quentin, all dead from him. Carl Axel Sander, different strategies from Velocity Vixen. Chris with a very solid 6th place over the line in the end. And then Alison Kubota, together with Frank, one of the first racers to really use their power-ups and try and stir things up. Always good to watch. And last but not least, Thomas Tibbling, who spent the majority of the first lap on the front, but he will come over the line in 8th. That is fantastic Alien Sea, and now we head to Mountain Bike by Jesper. How does that change the game plan for Cycling Hub now, Frank, that Tim crossed the line first?
Really odd racing. Not sure why Quentin and Tim, who were pretty strong, just didn't look to use the positive elements of the racing, but to each their own. We'll see how it works out. This puts Casey in the lead. I always prefer to be in the lead than not, so I think Casey's in a good spot.
Now let's go and have a word from Tim and talk to them about their strategies within the Team Cycling Hub camp, because they are second and third on the podium, only 3.5 points behind Casey. First of all, Tim, congratulations on the win. What was the strategy in the Cycling Hub camp? Because Quentin went up early, you sat on. When was the decision made for you to go over the top?
It wasn't really. Hugh kind of signed his ticket quite early, and therefore I just tried to sit on and cover any moves. But when Casey threw everything at it on the second to last descent, then tried to got back to him, and I just tried to help Hugh. But I mean, he'd been out the front for 3 laps, heart rate around 120. So I thought if I get to the top of the hill first, I can either take the win and take the most points. If Casey's with me, I can slow Casey down. Hugh can come round. But then there was attacks coming from Carl and I can't remember who, Allison and Chris maybe. I mean, Chris was working for us as well, but in the end, you've got to mop up as many points away from the opposition as possible. Obviously, I'd have liked Quinton to win it, but he still got third, and hopefully he's all right for the next one.
How much of a disadvantage is it that you don't have this as a preferred zone?
That I don't have it?
Yes.
Not really. I just come into every one and try and do my best. I'm surprised I managed to do what I just did there, so I think we're about to pay for it in the next 2 races.
We'll see. Speaking of someone who does have a preferred zone, Casey, we saw you incredibly animated on the stream. I mean, talk me through the range of emotions you just had in that Alien Sea race.
Just anger. Honestly, just angry. And I'll give my one racing tip for the day. When somebody burns every power-up to get across the gap, and you and your teammate both have all your power-ups, and the pack is closing, work together because you can both beat me in a sprint. You've got the power-ups. You had 1, 2. Instead, you blocked me, and you lost points. So that's my racing tip for the day. I was very angry, but I should have been third. They screwed it up, and I got second. So I guess it's thanks. And let's keep going. Quinton burned a lot of matches, so...
I love the fighting talk. I want to get a quick response because we have Quinton also in the broadcast. Quinton, I don't know if you just heard that, but what do you got to say to that?
I mean, we'll see in the end who wins the Omnium.
I feel like the stakes just got upped in this one. Thank you, Quinton. Frank, there's fuel on the fire. What's your take?
I think Casey's right. I thought that the negative racing by Cycling Hub was just odd. Like I could see it. They had a lot. They had numbers. They could have used somebody else to sort of slow things at the front. So it was interesting. It was a tad bit odd.
But that's what makes CVRcade World Cup racing so fascinating. There's so many different versions of the gameplay that can be deployed depending on how the team strategies and how the racing pans out. Now we have 6 laps of mountain bike by Jesper. Wind, power plant, wind at your back. Quinton is forced to use his power-ups early on. Frank's back in the racing. What's happening there, Frank?
Well, just thinking we'll help Casey out a little bit here.
Oh, I love it. So, a commentator jumps on the bike in order to help out a good old friend and tries to... that is a first ever in sports broadcasting. That should be interesting. So, Casey Shum gets a new ally, but how does that change the racing? How does that change the dynamic? Quinton Molinez paying for the effort, but so is Tim Fulford. Both Cycling Hub members in the wind here, both out of the draft. We'll take Frank off his audio so he can concentrate for this race and jump back into the booth depending if need be in the end. But this is why CVRcade racing is something different. The beef, the battles. I mean, can we be expecting diss tracks any soon here in the racing? Because this is absolutely taken to a different level. Alison Kubota, Casey Shum, Frank Garcia, 3 riders on the front, but this is so much racing still ahead of them, and I keep finding myself saying this with the amount of racing happening. You can look good in the earlier few laps, but then come the end, that's when you start to suffer and deteriorate. Tim, Quinton are making their way up. Timothy Tamont is also out there. This is a full-blown team trade war here. The flag has been put down, and the decisions that everyone is getting out and wanting a piece of this pie. Maybe that will also end with a best of 6, 10-ounce gloves, no headgear. I would love to see that. Tim Fulford in 8th place now. He's got Jeff on the left. He's got Carl Axel Sander on the left, going through both of them, and now that gap has been made up. Spitfire has spread his wings, and he will want this one. The bragging rights from this Zone K Omnium feels like bigger than ever. Doesn't matter about the prize purse. It doesn't matter about the later stages. This Omnium, I feel like, will be spoken at length. Oh, Timothy! What, Timothy? Oh, Timothy trying to force a mistake out of Casey Shum, but instead just goes right into his teammate. And then he crashes again. We go back This is Quinton's preferred zone. He's down in 8th, forced to use wind at his back. And we go back and we look at fantastic Alien C attacking on the very first lap with 4 races ahead of you. Frank is racing, Casey is racing, Carl is racing, Allison is racing, Jeff. I mean, the field is absolutely stacked, and you've got to wonder, was it a wise decision? Now, a late returner in the race here could be called Axel Sander. He's got this as a preferred zone, and he usually gets stronger as the racing progresses. He's very, very clever in the way he races, and here, the podium, the top spots in the Omnium are all changing as it's turning in to be a great set of races here. Casey in 2nd, Tim in 3rd, Allison 5th, Frank Garcia letting go of the group. We'll just let him catch his breath, and then we'll bring him back into the booth here as he was out there helping a good friend, just evening the scales of the teams. As Casey Shum is in 2nd wheel, Tim on 1st here. You can see them side by side, also side by side on the podium, with Tim having the top spot. Casey moves on through. In this race, there is a wind. There's a 7-kilometer-an-hour wind that you have to account for in every direction. Now, I believe it's a different radius today. It's a different direction out on course. Usually, it is a tailwind coming into the corner. I think it still may be a tailwind into the corner. I am not so sure. I think we've got Frank back in the booth. Frank, from being in the racing, were you able to see or feel who's got strong legs today?
This is such a tough course. It burns a lot of energy, especially with the wind. And looks like now it's going to be Tim and Casey. This race will be really, really important in deciding how close it is for the last race. The winner of this race is basically set up to win the Omnium.
Yes, because the last race is Dust Bowl Crit. This race is a 2.5 scoring multiplier. Chris Pritchard, though, returning into the racing. I'm really interested to see how he's doing here, because I don't know the last time he was on, but I would assume he's currently a Cade Cadet. And if that's the case, he's absolutely killing it on the front, understanding that the restraints the system does put on you when you initially come back after a long lull. So can he go up there and help his team captain, Tim Fulford? But Carl Axel Sander, he may look back at the points he let go in Fantastic Alien C. I think this is going to be incredibly close on the front. And we have to remember that Tim does enter the racing with a 16-point handicap, as he doesn't have this as a preferred zone. So he needs to beat 2nd place here by 16 points if it's Casey. Now, Carl doesn't have a matching kit, so he does lose out on a significant amount of points. We're almost with 1 lap to go here, Frank. Oh, I mean, it's too close. It's almost too tough to call. Who do you think is going to get the upper hand on the last lap?
Well, I hope Carl actually does something positive here rather than sitting on a wheel, because I think he should be able to affect things substantially, because he's sort of the unmarked good player, right, in this group. So it'll be interesting to see what he does. Otherwise, I think Tim's pretty well rested, so I would give him the nod. Ooh,
oh,
Tim almost.
And this is actually into a crosswind as well. It's not even a headwind, so they're using it into the slight crosswind. Casey and Tim, they've got to be careful here. You can see Casey already braking. So many times we've seen riders make that mistake. Tim Fulford versus Casey, the last lap. Frank giving the nod to Tim, hoping that Carl could maybe come over the top. And now Carl into the headwind, wind at his back. This is the exact time to use it. But he looks to be resting up a tiny bit and then going again. And while that happens, the gap increases 1 second, 2 seconds on the front. Tim Fulford, Casey Shum. Who will it be? It's a fight for the Castrop corner. Usually, whoever enters that last corner in first position takes it. You can see Casey on the left. You can see Tim. They now push it. Tim comes on through. Casey's putting on a face. Advantage to Tim Fulford here. The gap comes out. Casey has got a chance to get back in. Castrop corner. Tim breaks. Casey breaks. And I believe Tim Fulford will take yet another win here today to the collection. 2 hands up from Casey, and now that is the advantage. But remember, the overall Omnium gets decided by bonus points here as well, so that is up for grabs. Carl comes third. He's on the audio widget with Jeff. They're discussing strategy. Allison next up to finish. She's sitting down in 6th with Jeff in 5th. Big shout out to Chris Pritchard here with a breakthrough performance on mountain bike by Jesper. But the big story, and it seems to be happening a bit more on mountain bike by Jesper than others. Quentin Molinez off the back early on, paying for those efforts as we now head into the 4th and decisive race of the day. Dust Bowl Crit. Did that pan out like you thought it would, that last lap, Frank?
Yeah, that looked about right. I was hoping Carl would get a little bit more in the mix. I think when you get 3, it gets much easier to make a mistake than with 2. And so I just don't think Carl had it there at the end. I think they laid back off in Fantastic Alien C, and then they just had to burn a lot of power right at the end of that race. And coming into mountain bike by Jesper, whew, this course required a tremendous amount of energy.
And now, Dust Bowl Crit is up next. That will also take a tremendous amount of energy. We've got Tim on the screen. Tim, that looked like a highly contested race. You had to come back from an early deficit. How much did it mean to hear, the comments being thrown out by Casey, having Frank join the racing? Did that help fuel the fire?
No, not really. It's like, at the end of the day, I'll get off my bike and say well done to all of them. But obviously, your heart rate's through the roof. You're gonna be a bit more volatile, say some different things. I mean, Casey's points were all very valid. I mean, there was an opportunity to go 1-2, and we didn't make it. But everyone's strategies don't always come off. Q, I didn't think had enough time to recover there, so I tried to do my best. But yeah, Casey, I mean, I've raced Casey for 3 or 4 years. He's a fighter, so he's never going to give up.
I like it, Tim. Last race coming up now. You're at a bit of a point disadvantage. Even though you're in the lead, you do need to go out and grab more points. We'll go speak to 2nd place, Casey Shum. Casey, despite being 2nd place, you do have that 16-point benefit from racing your preferred zone. Does that mean you'll come out and just try and mark Tim in this one, or will you come out swinging?
I think you go for the win regardless. If you mark Tim and we end up 5th and 6th place, somebody's going to win this race and beat us both, right? So I think you got to stay aggressive. But it essentially comes down to, though, if Tim and I finish in the top 3 or 4, it's really whoever finishes in front of the other. I think I can be 1 spot behind Tim and still win, but 2 spots is trouble. So you just go for it there. I mean, that was a good race. A lot of fun. I still stand by my comment. They would be in better shape points-wise and still been able to perform the same in that last race had they played it different. But that's all right. Tim's right. It's fun. We get fired up. I will scream at my teammates during a race and hug them, and we're done. That's the way you play.
You do race a lot, Casey. Do you ever get this level of involvement with other races? Like, do you ever feel like this intensely involved in the racing?
No, the difference is I'll get annoyed by people's what I think are bad moves and other racing, but their bad moves here directly impact me more than other types of racing I do. So it's a little easier to get a little more upset about it because it's actually taking something away from me. So you're a little more personally invested in that negativity because it's not just hurting themselves, it's hurting you.
That is the truth. 10 seconds to go. Casey Shum, Tim Fulford, Carl Axel Sander, all at the front. Top 3 coming into Dust Bowl Crit. All eyes will be on Tim Fulford here as he's going to have to make a difference in this race as he is currently the leader on the scoreboard, but preferred zones making a difference in the point standings. I think we're seeing a role reversal. Quentin coming into this one a bit more rested. You can see Tim on the phone. I think he's texting Quentin. I think he's texting his teammates, letting them know just exactly how to pull this this racing off, understanding the different roles they've got to play in this one. I see Frank Garcia has jumped into the racing, and he is playing a role again, trying to help out. Thomas Tibbling does crash down. So Frank, my co-commentator, ever so often he'll jump in, and this is the point. Oh, he forces a mistake out of Quinton Molyneux there. So mission accomplished, as all the bot patrol also gets hit by magpies and lands by the side. So mission accomplished from Frank Garcia coming out there, and he wanted to have an impact. He moves on up on Quinton, and he forces a mistake. As you can see him slow down into the corner, Quinton laps over the top and then goes down on the front. Tim Fulford is now back in the racing. He needs to get those points. Winner of this race gets 60. Second place gets 52. 8 points differential, and Tim will need all of that as Frank, oh, he gets hit by his own snake bite there as he crosses the wheels of Tim Fulford and goes down. Top three now. On the front, Carl, Casey, Tim. In this race, you have one path of least resistance, one wind at your back, and one inertia. Allison has used hers. She now comes flying back with 54 kilometers an hour. She will catch. Oh, she slams into the back of Carl. But what that does is it forces a mistake out of Casey. Oh, in the span of seconds. This does seem to happen a lot to Casey in the last lap, the last race. Just those single misopportunative moments like that. If we can bring that up in the replay, I don't think he sees in the rearview mirror that Allison is flying with all that speed as we just catch it there. Casey overlapping the wheels, and now a 12-second deficit to make back up. I do believe we've got Frank back in the commentary booth. Frank, how heartbreaking is it if you're Casey to go down like that in the last race?
Oh, it's heartbreaking. I was trying to brake, and I crashed, so I couldn't provide Casey much help. Then I crashed again, trying to use my power-ups to get back to help out. So it's all on Casey now, but it's heartbreak when you crash.
10 seconds is the difference. He can still get back on terms. But Carl can't rule himself out now, but he'll be looking back and definitely left some points on the table in Fantastic Alien Sea. Allison is up there, Quinton is up there. It is some good racing all around, but 5.4 kilometers to go. I believe Tim is racing both zones, Frank. Is there ever a point where, because you've been in this situation before, that you think, right, I can win this one, but I can also save energy and perhaps win two zones back to back?
No, I think if you win, you take the win, right? A bird in the hand is worth two in the bush, as they say. So I think that's what he'll do.
We'll see. Tim, not one for holding back punches. 1,200, 1,100 equalized watts. This is his style of racing as Carl Axel Sander also crashes down. And that looked like he just came too hot into the corner. Very unlike Carl Axel Sander, as now he has to use path of least resistance. He went up against the Tempest Nils Heldens on Saturday and came away victorious on Zone E Racing as he has to make it up. This now puts Quinton Molyneux back into third place. Quinton is back up, but Tim Fulford just so powerful in the front here. I mean, this has been really interesting racing. I mean, now Carl goes down again. How much is this down to fatigue, Frank, and how much is just down to not knowing the course?
Well, I think there's some practicing. There's also, fatigue, but there's also wanting to push to get back, right?
Yes, and I think that's what we're seeing now from Casey as well. Windad is back. He's going to try and catch up. 48 kilometers an hour. Maybe a tiny bit quick on the trigger there, but he does pass Quinton, and he's got to be careful he doesn't give up a second place here. So despite crashing, he's now back in. Tim Fulford, though, extending the lead. 14 seconds is the gap. Allison, Casey, Quinton, Carl, they have all used their inertias, and they will be fighting for secondary position. So as we look at the scoreboard, Casey has got quite a large gap down to third place to Carl, but Carl and Quinton for the third spot on the podium is separated by less than 2 points. As we come into the seeding, I mean, every position, every point is gonna matter. because when we come into the tournament, into the playoffs, suddenly you're facing tougher or easier opponents. Not that there is really such a thing since it's equalized, but there are definitely some racers that perform more consistently than others, that put in the homework and have enough reps here in game situations. Casey and Quinten racing on through. A bit of this beef happening today, Frank. I know you've spoken about this before. Do you think it will carry on? Because we've got plenty more racing as now Quinten literally slams the door on Allison. Do you think this will continue in the later zones?
I think this will continue in the later stages. Cycling Hub's going to have to bring their A game in the later stages, because there are going to be people who are going to try and cost them thousands of dollars just on blocking alone. Oh. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out throughout the season.
Those are the different strategies you've got to weigh in your mind, as people take a long time to forget, especially blocks. You heard what Casey said. On other racers, there's when the decisions not only impact their racing but directly impact your racing, that's when you do not forget. Now watch Quinten and Carl. He lets Carl pass on through, and now side by side they come up the hill. I think whoever places better of the two will take third spot on the podium. It may not be enough. I think they might have to catch Allison here on the front. Tim Fulford, I mean, I do believe he's one of the kings, if not the king, of Dust Bowl crit. Mo TP Kilney is up there as well with some of his performances, but Tim Fulford, the way he races this course, he's got a very specific style, which is every time there's a bit of an incline, you go at it. So watch now, he comes onto the climb. I think we'll see him race it up to 600, even to 1,000 equalized watts. And he does this to get that momentum, because if you were to flatten out the course and make it into a time horizon, and you'd see where the most time is gained, it's every single time on the inclines. Some take it easy and some give it their all. Tim, I mean, if you add the points here, I think, wait. If we give Casey 16 points, he's at 200. He's at 211. I do think Quinten needs to beat him. I think if my math, Frank, it's a good thing we have you in the booth. Is my math correct here? Casey's currently technically leading by 2 points.
Yeah, and Casey's laughing all the way to the bank on Quinten. Quinten's doing the blocking, and I think if Quinten had just gone hard, used his power-ups, and tried to stay away from Casey, and really Tim could have come back. So sometimes I don't get the Cycling Hub teamwork, because I think Tim and Quinten off the front mean that Tim can win, and Quinten gets third. But now it looks like, Casey will get the win on bonus points, and Tim and Quinten may get, like second and fourth. So some odd numbers there. Yeah, so I think they could have played some better teamwork. It's interesting. I'm sure they all have their own opinions on what is the best teamwork. But sometimes I think Tim just goes, head down off the front, go hard, and his strategy is beast mode.
Quinten just crashed as well. So that is the strategy of catching Casey out the window, and they have to rely on Allison. Frank, if you're Tim, do you ever break? Do you ever just sit up and let Casey come back and then try and block him out of the way?
No, I wouldn't do that. You can do a little blocking in the high skill events, but it's dangerous as heck. And if you go down, then things could really change.
So with the scoreboard, it is so fascinating to watch, because preferred zones do make a difference. Bonus points are there to encourage that racers do show up for their preferred zones, and they do get 16 bonus points when it's 4 races here. So when you look at the total difference, you can see Tim 209.5, Casey 195. Now I didn't do my due diligence before and added up the numbers, but the way the racing is currently shaping up, Casey is winning by 2 points as he's got the bonus points. And I'm not sure if Team Cycling Hub realized this, because Quinten slammed the brakes on Allison earlier on, and as Frank said, if he just continued over the top, perhaps he had a chance of catching Casey. Now they have to rely on Allison. Can Allison and Carl Axel Sander catch back up to Casey Shum and take away points? Because all they need to do is knock him down 1 spot. Meanwhile, Tim has used inertia. He's got to be careful of the bot patrol, but he's only got 700 meters to go. And he's got to be one of the red-hot favorites walking into Zone L. Because in 9 minutes time, 10 minutes time, we've got more racing right here on the CVR World Cup Mixer page. We've got another zone. New racers are joining in. Beth York. We've got Timothy Termont and other racers returning in. So if you want to see them, stick around. But as Frank was mentioning, laughing all the way to the bank currently. I think he's too busy suffering. But Casey Shum with a thumbs up. He understands. For him, he may not have won a single stage, but consistency is key on CVRcade World Cup. And it comes down to Fantastic Alien C. That one decision where Quinton, Tim not working together, not taking those points away from Casey. He is now in a position where he will take the Omnium based on bonus points. Tim will take a 3rd stage in a row. But can you believe it? 3 stages in a row, and that's just how strong Casey Shum is to still be able to come over the top without any team support. Tim Fulford, he'll be happy, but I think there'll be a hunger for more. Casey Shum on the left, celebrating all the way, rocking the Team X kit. Very happy about that one. Carl Axel Sander was going to take 3rd place ahead of Quinton Molyneux here. So Cycling Hub 2nd and 4th. Velocity Vixen, Carl Axel Sander can be proud of that one, but I think head back to the drawing board, dissect the racing as Allison gave him a run for his money. She rests up. Quentin is in Boulder Alley with teammate Chris Pritchard. Frank, who are your big winners and who are your big losers from this Zone K racing?
I think Casey performed really well. So I think with the bonus points, good performance for him. Sets up well for how the seeding is going to go in the tournament in the final week. So Casey's getting some good seeding there. Tim was out last week, so a bit down on points, but I'm sure he'll race enough Omniums to score enough points. Obviously, winning on pure points today, big winner. I thought Q was the big loser, and just on too focused on blocking, maybe a little bit more positive play, and he ends up in 3rd position instead of 4th.
I'm sure that'll be a lot. Sorry?
I said that can really hurt him in the seeding long term. So I think that that matters. The seeding really matters. Sometimes you have to race more, and you certainly have to race more difficult racers the further down in the seeding you are.
I'm sure we'll see next race up with a lot of passion. This really set the tone as we've got more racing coming up. You're watching the highlight here as Tim crosses the line. Bit of an empty look there despite winning 3 stages. Down on bonus points. It will make the difference come the end. Now we've got Zone L starting in 7.5 minutes. See, Sun Shower is in the race on a keyboard. Good to see her getting in amongst the action. Timothy Tamont, Niels Heldens is racing. Peter Castro, Homer Thompson, Casey Shum. I want to get a quick word with Casey before he does head out for the day. So you can see him resting up. Casey, congratulations. That looked like it mattered a lot to you. I mean, you were up against it. It's not often we hear you be so agitated. I mean, how sweet was that victory?
Yeah, that one was extra special. Little sugar on top of that one. Quentin kind of threw it back at me, which lit the fire a little bit more. So we got to make sure Quentin notices who won the Omnium after all that. And still in the end, I mean, really the lesson there, and I love the art of team racing and racing together, even when you're not directly on the same team. I mean, they essentially could have had the Omnium win. They could have had 1 position better for Tim and 1 position better for Quentin by playing the strategy a little different. But I mean, I'm super excited with the way I performed. I think I swept 2nd place in every race, and it's probably one of my highest scoring points events, which Frank brings up a good point. It's really in the end about points. There's some bragging rights and a little bit of award money on the line for each Omnium, but really the points matter more than anything at this point. The big stakes come up later, and between points and possibly relationship straining, it could really impact the later real racing.
Talk
So,
to me about
that's
the relationship straining bit. That's the thing I think everyone wants to hear about.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think what it comes down to, and those things can be fixed in one race, right? Like, a lot of people are new to racing, don't know how to play the game, and maybe it just doesn't. For me, I've been doing it long enough that as soon as I get with somebody, it's about, in my brain, what's best for me and what's best for us. And you race that way until it's time to get selfish. And I think part of that is a learning experience for everybody, for most people in the group. So there's definitely, if those actions continue, they will not get a lot of cooperation in the later stages. But that can be fixed really quickly. One of those guys does me a solid. You know, Tim Fulford and I race together a lot. We'll troll one another in the races and kind of laugh about it. But that one got a little blatant from Quentin. That can be repaired now. But if that type of racing continues, you just don't work with those people anymore. You let them hang.
I like that every action has a consequence, even when it's working or not working together, considering the amount of money. Congratulations, Casey. We got 4 minutes until the next race. I can see Tim with a smile on his face. What you got to say to all that, Tim?
I just love Casey's brilliant. Like, if he thinks I'm going to work with him when when Quentin's up the road, I mean, he's got another thing coming. But no, I mean, I'll take 3 wins on an Omnium that I'm just doing what I needed to. If Casey thinks he did well from coming second 4 times, that's fine. He got good points, and he got over the line because he had some bonus points that will be added on later. But I'd rather be over 200 points and win the Omnium. He's going to know in future races that I'll be able to beat him because I've just done it 3 times in a row. So swings and roundabouts, lots of good fun. I mean, lots of people are hating on Cycling Hub for whatever they do, but at the end of the day, it's a game where you get fit and you have fun. I'll probably message Casey later and have a laugh about it.
On a more positive note, you had Chris Pritchard in there in the racing as well. I thought it was really interesting to see him do so well. Well, as a team leader, how did that feel?
Yeah, it's brilliant. I had a chat to Chris earlier, and I was just like, we're doing Electric Blast. Electric Rush. I keep calling it Electric Blast because there's just things going off everywhere. And I said, Chris, like, it's your kind of thing. So he jumped in. I think he's streaming it on his channels as well. So hopefully got a good audience over there. And yeah, I just said, I mean, he's been away with work as well, so he's not very fit. But maybe that played to his advantage tonight.
Well, that doesn't really matter in CVRcade thanks to physical equalization. So, Chris Pritchard's late chance to come back and probably sweep some of that money with his strong sprint. Thank you, Tim. And I like the narrative continues. I'm really interested to watch the repercussions of the racing today, heading into more of the racing as you can see it on the screen. Now getting ready into the broadcast, we've got Beth York, who's joining us here for Zone L today. Beth, what did you think of all the storylines that just came out in Zone K? Like, we've not seen that level of intensity before.
Yeah, and I was just coming in here at the tail end of it, and it sounds like it got a little spicy there, and even Tim saying for fun, and he's giving Casey a hard time for second place. I don't know, man. Oh my gosh, so fun.
This is evolving as a commentator, both you and I think this is what we live for, Beth, so I'm just so happy to be here today. You had Carl in the previous race, 3rd out there. What does that mean for the Velocity Vixens?
Well, he's really doing some high placement, some great showing, and it's been awesome to have him racing. And I'm really excited for our team, and hopefully we'll be able to bring some more. Looks like I might be flying solo here in this next event, but I'm psyched for our team. I knew more could do K. I just schedule-wise had to do L today, so here we are.
Perfect. I'm glad L has got you, Beth, as we see you take on a different zone. We get a last word from the king of the bottom left-hand corner as he's on his phone playing Angry Birds. Timothy Tamont, what's your take on everything today?
It's a new zone. Let's go.
Oh.
It's been fun. We're just gonna go now.
That's the spirit. We'll see as he goes
Oh, yeah.
through the Tesla coil field. Good luck, Timothy. Good luck, Beth. Good luck, everyone that are racing again. I think Tim is doing a second zone, so we'll see how the racing performs. I'm absolutely loving this, and if you are loving it, click that follow button down below. We stream Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. Tuesdays, we got 2 hours right now. We've got an hour later on this evening for America. Thursday's the same. Saturday is different. But without further ado, Zone L, here we go. We've got Electric Rush coming up again. I think this time it won't catch people as off guard as it did the last time. The last time it was the first time ever it was raced, and this time I think we'll see it being unfold as riders are getting ready out on course. They're shaping up. They're in a pack now as they get ready for a sprint. Good to see Thomas Tibbling back for more in this one here as we get ready for more racing. Casey Shum is still in here just listening, just watching it. As you can see, Alison Kubota on the front here of the racing. She's just moving her legs. She's just actually gone off the bike there, as we can see. Riders moving on. Beth York is sitting in this group. Velocity Vixen rider. So Alison Kubota is deciding, you know what, I'm in the group, but I'm going to get off and go do something else. Thomas Tibbling uses his comeback kit further back. He is racing for more here for Team CCC. He's got teammates now. He's got Homer. He's got Peter. He's got someone to ride with and ride for. Nils Heldens comes out. And the Tempest, I'm telling you, he's been an outstanding performer as of late. We saw it Saturday. Zone E, Zone K. He is one to watch out for now. He's not getting the streaming points today as he's not broadcasting in. But we'll see. Beth remains on the screen. We got Timothy Tamont in this group. He won before on a no-skill event. Usually he ramps up the track sprinting. He gets ready and then he unleashes. We'll see if that will be the case today. But with all these twists and turns, you heard Casey say that the drafting changes dramatically. With 2 laps remaining now, who will it be? Cycling Hub 1-2 on the leaderboard. Sebastian Kuhn is back in. Good to see him racing again. But without a doubt, one of the strongest racers. Tim, just off the back ever so slightly here as he's got to be careful. And there's Tim. He's actually let go of the group. He's getting ready for a comeback kit. But we've seen this before. It doesn't usually play out the way you think it's going to do. And with 1 full lap remaining, he's doing a massive sprint effort to try and come through the group. But on the front, Frank Garcia is not allowing this to happen. He sees the move and he counters. 200 meters to go. But Tim has come through the group as the comeback kit runs out. He's got nothing left. And Frank Garcia takes the victory. It is such a chaotic finish there on Electric Rush. You can look at the scoreboard. It is confirmed. Frank Garcia won. Timothy second. Nils third. Tim Fulford fourth. Beth York fifth. That finish. Oh my goodness, is it tough to keep track of where they are in the course. You see Tim letting go of the group, trying to use the comeback kit. And it's probably the best we've seen it executed so far. But even when it's executed well, it doesn't seem to really live up to the full potential. Because he comes on through, and if you keep an eye on the right side, he comes to the group, but he ends up in 3rd place. Frank Garcia with the early attack, 1200 equalized watts. You can see the layers of salt on that cap as he gets close to the camera. Tim sits up and he is with Timothy crossing the line in 4th, keeping some power remaining for the next one. Frank Garcia's patented celebration there, as we've seen that so many times. I believe Frank may just be going for some water, so we'll get a word from Timothy Tamont. Timothy, 2nd place in that one. First time ever racing Electric Blast, as Tim calls it, or Electric Rush, its real name. What was that like?
Oh, it's a fun course. Frank surprised me a little bit by going early, but looking back at it, it wasn't really early at all. It's just, the finish comes up so fast. Normally, you're like, okay, 1 lap to go. Okay, I'll just wait a little bit longer and then I go. But on this course, it was like 1 lap to go. You should have gone all in already. But yeah, 2nd place, it's good. It's good. I'm happy.
Fantastic Alien Seas coming up now. This is where the beef, the whole storyline started in the last one. Or are you gonna try a Quentin here? Are we gonna see a long range attack from the Mustache Man?
From me, 11 kilometers. Oh, this is 2 laps too much for me. You know that.
I would have said 4, but
We'll
I'll
see.
give you 2.
Oh, okay. Let's do 3 in the middle. That's it.
Well, anyway, you were
Yeah.
2nd, 3rd, and 4th for Team Cycling Hub. It puts you in a good position. What's the mood?
Apparently,
in the team
that's
camp?
all you need to do. Get 2nd when you win. So
Oh, it continues playing with fire. Timothy, I'll let you go. Frank is still not back to his seat. We'll get a word here from Beth York following that race, because Beth is a fan of the extravagant, of the coloristic Electric Rush. What's your take, Beth?
Oh, I love Electric Rush, but Timothy made a really good point that because those laps are short, they do come up quick. So Frank wasn't really going early. Neat strategy there from Tim to drop back, get that extra power, and try to have that momentum carry him through. We did something similar on Saturday where we went off the front and tried to use the comeback hit in succession. So different tactics being utilized. Fantastic Alien Sea next. It's a long one. Not super long, but this course has a way of taking it out of the legs with that big, long, steady climb. So it'll be a good one.
We'll see. So you've got Sebastian back in the racing, you've got Peter in. Does that ever worry you a tiny bit? Because when Sebastian was racing, he was dang on near impossible to beat.
Yeah, this field is super stacked. I mean, I was like, oh, I won't be in K. I won't have Casey and Tim to deal with, but Tim's in here. Allison's in here. She's super strong. So, but these are the type of races that push you in ways that you didn't know you had. So in terms of the fun fitness, and then we'll see what happens with the storylines. So this will be fun.
Goodness, I can't wait to watch what's about to happen. Thanks, Beth. It
Oh my
feels like a coil has been just loaded up, and we're just waiting to see the start gate drop as it goes whoosh. And, it could be one of those slinkies you get at Christmas, or it could be a full-on lethal coil. We never know. 10 seconds to go, and we will find out. The racers are now getting ready to go. We watched Timothy Tumont taking on here 4 laps. Frank Garcia winning the previous race, and he now starts this race. So you got the opportunity to commentate Zone K. And the last time that happened, he went on to win the zone after it. But Sebastian Kuhn, the judge, is back in. And Judge Seb usually rules with a hard touch, and I think he's going to be a good one to get back. I always love watching Sebastian racing, but we watch now Frank Garcia winning the first race with a long-range attack. Quentin moves up to the front. He's not broadcasting in for this zone. We can only imagine what his legs feels like as he comes to the front. Frank there, I think he's wary of a block from Quentin as, it's already starting. Quentin just slamming the brake once more. Frank moves 2 lanes over, and I think we'll see an acceleration to get out of it here as Timothy moves on through. So it's already starting. The repercussions of the first zone have been bleeding in. They're now spilling over into Zone L. Timothy Tumont, Frank Garcia here off the front. Is he going to be the chosen champion of the Cycling Hop bunch here? You've got Beth down in 5th place. She is just going to try to hang on. You heard her say she doesn't have any teammates out there today, but that's not going to stop her. She's been racing well here as she's on the wheels of the Tempest. Nils Heldens fighting for the draft. Tim Fulford just behind Beth here, and they now together try and move on up. So Tim's got Nils. As Nils gets passed by Beth, she moves on up. Timothy Tumont right now is at 190 equalized heart rate. I think the nerves may be getting to him now that he's in a winning situation as Beth passes home. Or Timothy continues to stand up. What does he do though? Because does he work with Frank? He's pushing out 400 watts here, 270. This is going to be interesting to watch because Nils Helden's forced to use his 1 quantum shift. You get 1 quantum shift, 1 weight lifted, 1 racer's edge. Can Timothy afford to work with Frank, work with Beth? Because he's got Nils, he's got Tim, and they're both coming up from behind. Tim has got this as preferred zone. Nils, Timothy, Frank, Homer, Sebastian, Peter, all the big shots, excluding the Glitter Queen, Beth York, essentially have this as their preferred zone, as now Timothy stays on with Frank. We look back to the racer who won 3 races in a row. He's acquired the services of the Tempest. So the Tempest and the Spitfire lining up here in formation, ready for takeoff here, as they are in hot pursuit of Frank Garcia. Maverick and Goose here, ready to go for more action. Homer Thompson, Sebastian Kuhn, Peter Castro, Team CCC here is the casualty. We go back and you look from above. You've got Peter, Sebastian, and Homer. They're linked up. They remind me of the Pink Panthers here, but they're not quite executing here, as they have to now make up the gap. But the first time back racing after this long, it will be a shock to the system. 5 racers remain on the front. Beth York sitting on the wheel. It's a low skill event. You cannot crash, but you've got to be attentive. With Frank on the front, he will be cooperative. He'll be trying to work with the rest. Timothy is there, and they slide on to the left. Previous zone here, Quentin attacked very early on. This zone, he's just staying with the butts, but I think it's going to be some very interesting racing. Niels Heldens makes it back. Tim Fulford here has got to make it back. You can see him stand up, apply some pressure, and move on through as he comes through the chicane there. So they're back in the racing. Team Cycling Hub have got the numbers. 3 versus 1 versus 1. Beth York sees this move though, and she is not intent in staying with this. Very clever move here from Beth York, understanding that with the regroupment of Tim Fulford and Niels Heldens, it's in the advantage of Cycling Hub, and she now wants to press the message, and this is absolutely amazing from Beth, but can she execute? This was the right move. She presses the wrong button. You can see it, quantum shift. She's like, go away, and we will do, because Tim Fulford further down, he is now on the front. Does he respect the move of Beth? She uses every power-up, just like Frank said, that when you're in this position, you should. And can she get away? Nils, Tim, Timothy, if they can get organized, they've got a chance of bridging back. But Beth York has been in this position before as a domestique, a teammate, but now she's up there as a team leader. 10-second gap from around the world. Vibeke Bertram in Denmark, Carl Axel Sander in Sweden, Jeff Rooney in New Zealand. You've got Ryan Goldenberg in Canada, and everyone else who I've forgotten. Joyce de Smith in Belgium. They're going, come on, Beth, come on, Glitter Queen. We'll see if you can do it, but it's a big task, a big ask with a 12-second deficit. How does Frank Garcia play this one? He came into this race winning the first race, and he now finds himself in a situation with Tim Fulford. He passes Tim on the left, and now he moves on over. Now, don't know if Tim is going to do any of the pacing here. Does he trust Timothy and Niels Heldens enough? Does he trust them enough to close down that gap? Is he going to sit on the wheel of Frank Garcia here? As you can see him standing up, and he does. He plays a defensive move here as he gets on the wheel of that very recognizable red avatar of Frank Garcia. You know that is Frank Garcia when you see that avatar. Meanwhile, up the road, Timothy Tamont, 11 seconds is the gap. Equalized heart rate is through the roof. It may be time for a Kinder Bueno or Leo at this time to insert some more energy. He's too focused. He's even too concentrated to laugh at the jokes. That means it is business time. Oh, there we got a smile in the Team Cycling Hub camp as Niels Heldens finds himself on the front. But Beth York utilized the exact moment to attack, to use the power-ups. Not a moment of decisiveness. Even so decisive, she popped the wrong power-up. She is within it. You can see the side-by-side shot. Velocity Vixen Rider on the left. Team Cycling Hub on the right. Tim just happy to stay on the wheel of Frank Garcia. They're 5 seconds back I'm not sure what the move is here for Frank, because Frank has got to ensure, and there he goes. Frank Garcia uses his power-ups, raises edge, weight lifted, and he wants to leave Tim and get onto the wheel of Timothy and Nilsson. This was the danger, this was the threat, as he uses Quantum Shift to go right on through the two Cycling Hub riders. But this was the threat for Tim Fulford, because the second that Frank decides to initiate, what does he have left? He needs to be out there, because Timothy Tamont, Nils Heldens, they don't have the same share of prime time experience. When you find your limit and the game requires you to go above it, that's where you find out what character you're made of. But further back, like Sebastian Kuhn is just slowly riding his way back, and it's been a while since we've had Sebastian Kuhn in the racing. So what we're gonna see is that the judge is just gonna slowly but surely, you know, bake that cake and get back in the racing here. So we got Tim Fulford 2 seconds up the road, and we move back up to the front. Timothy Tamont, Frank Garcia, Beth York with Nils Helden. So Nils is a threat here, but he's missing out on streaming points. We saw Nils stream in on Saturday. He had the option today, fortunately not able, so he's missing out on a lot of points. That only really means that within this 5-man group in the front, Tim, Timothy, Frank, Beth, with the bonus points, have a good chance of taking that Omnium victory. Will that determine how they play it? We'll just have to wait and see. But 5 kilometers remain. And Beth York, she has not sat down. Who needs a saddle anyway? Beth York dancing on the pedals here as she's just focused, zoomed in. And she hasn't really gone below 400 equalized watts. I mean, this is very impressive. But we saw this in the previous zone. Quentin Molinez went out all gun blazing, and it looked great for him. Then we came into mountain bike by Jesper, and suddenly all the wheels fell off the bus, and there was no more going around. So we'll see. Beth now sitting down. Frank Garcia leads the chase. He's happy to continue doing the work. You can see him heavily breathing. I think his strategy here may to be simply ride Nils and Timothy off the wheel, because I think he's making the mental calculation. Who would I rather face in mountain bike by Jesper in Dust Bowl Crit? Would I rather face Tim Fulford, Sebastian Kuhn, or would I rather face Nils Heldens and Timothy Tamont? I think that is the mental calculation that's being made. And it could be the right one, but only time will tell. As we near the crest of the second to last time, the penultimate time up, fantastic Alien Sea climb. Tim has got a good helper, Sebastian Kuhn. He could get back on with power-ups. I don't think Tim has used any of his power-ups, whereas the riders in the front have, I believe. I think maybe Timothy and Nils have not, but we'll see as we continue. Timothy and Nils content. Timothy might be in a bit of struggle, Will, here, but seems like he has regained his composure. Nils on the left. How do they play it? How strategically, what do they do? Because there's always the option of negative racing. As well as the option of working together, there's also the other option. Because this is Tim's preferred zone. And if they've got more faith in him, there's always the opportunity of shutting the door. We saw it in Zone K. There's already some bad blood in the waters. I think this is going to get very heated as we get into the finals, but we're seeing Timothy Tamont here not being able to stick on that wheel, and it's his teammate, it's Nils Heldens dishing out the pain, and Timothy receiving it. And I don't think Timothy is liking any of it, as he is bopping left and right, and just trying to catch his breath. Nils Heldens goes, Timothy stands up, Frank Garcia on it, so Nils really just putting in the hammer, or putting the nails in the coffin, and that hammer seems to be too big. Timothy Tamont, he may even go further back. He can get 5th, he can get 6th, he can get 7th. Oh, there will be some choice words in the team camp afterwards. One cycling rider dropping the other, and then it's only Frank Garcia who is totally red in the face, matching the avatar. But look at this, Timothy Tamont on the wheel of Frank. He bumps Frank, the momentum goes down. I think Frank may have just blocked Timothy, put down the brakes. I didn't catch that the first time around. Oh my goodness, it continues, everybody. It gets better and better. Who are you rooting for? Which camp are you? Are you camp Casey, Frank, etc.? Or are you camp Team Cycling Hub? Let us know in the chat. And if you're enjoying this, click that follow button down below. Bottom left-hand corner. Timothy on the screen. Last lap remains. He's got Sebastian Kuhn, Tim Fulford behind him. He knows just how important these points are. But what does Niels Heldens do? Because Frank put on the block heavily. You saw him just put on the brakes, Niels attacked, and then Frank went there. And it's clever racing because Timothy was hanging in the balance. He was just barely sticking on. I mean, there was not a lot of butter left in that top. And so he had to stick on there. And what Frank saw is, right, I'm just going to turn the top upside down. It's going to slide out. Bam, it's over. Now, Tim further down, weight lifted. Maybe in communication here with Sepp, but Sebastian launches, and it's the comeback of the judge in 5th place out of Germany. He's got his sights on the front 4 here. Let's not forget though, Beth York has been off the front for so long. She's used her power-ups. The glasses have come off, but she's still dancing away. She's got the tunes. It's like being back in the spin class. You're rocking away now, but you've got to execute now. Halfway up the climb. She's not got much left, but this is the toughest bit now. Timothy Tamont has been caught by his team leader, Tim Fulford. Or not. He's putting back some of the pressure now. 7 seconds up to the front group. What goes on in the Cycling Hub camp now? Do they try and help Tim? Does Tim help Timothy? Do they work together? Are they scared of Sebastian Kuhn? All these questions, you may as well have a Magic 8 ball, shake it and say better luck next time. Because right now, on the front, Beth, Niels, Frank are running away with it. There's Timothy. You can see head is down. That usually means there's not a lot left in the tank. He said 1 lap too much. And now we're seeing that in the stream, in the racing. Frank's looking around. He's spinning away. He's on the wheel of Niels Heldens. The gap to Beth has come down. I think Niels still has his power-ups, so he's in a good position here as he now attempts to ride Frank off his wheel. The Tempest is flying, but how much gas is left in the tank? That is what remains. You do not want a crash landing here on Fantastic Alien Sea. Tim has been dropped. Tim has been distanced, and it's Sebastian Kuhn versus Timothy Tamont now. You can see Tim maybe feeling the previous efforts in the racing today. A bit of time off now, and he will be distanced. Timothy Tamont has got to fight off a hungry Sebastian Kuhn. He's got to look over the shoulder and be worried. But on the front, Niels Heldens, weight lifted. He's caught Beth York. He needs all the points he can get. You can see Frank react to it. Oh, and Beth shuts the door! But then they also shut the door on Frank. This is one big fight on the front. It is a dog fight. It's in the mud. It's in the alley streets. They are fighting with everything goes here, except no biting of ears. We don't tolerate that. Niels Heldens, Razor's Edge on the inside. He's going to struggle to get out. Oh, and Beth lets him up, but Frank blocks him. Oh, this is so good. Frank Garcia with a shut-down block. That's Niels' power-ups gone and dusted. And we're going to have a 3-up sprint here for the line. Niels, Beth, and Frank Garcia. 500 meters remain here. Further back, who will it be? You got the blue and the blue, followed by the one in the red. Frank right now is on the front. Niels is coming back. Beth York as well into the sprint. Who will it be? You can now see the side-by-side shot here between Frank Garcia and Beth York on the screen. 200 meters to go. Frank has launched the sprint. Everything he's got. 800 equalized. Beth versus Niels. But on the front, Frank Garcia catching them off guard. He will take the win. But secondary positions are so important. It will be Niels Heldens in front of Beth York. But what a race. What an absolute amazing race. Timothy Tamont further down is just going to beat Sebastian Kuhn to the line, I think. So Sebastian, I think, gets nipped on the line. Tim Fulford comes over the line in 6th. So Cycling Hub 2nd and 5th on the race. Sebastian, good comeback. Timothy saving it, but Beth York, heartbreak at the very end. And that is Fantastic Alien Sea for the second time around. Frank Garcia standing up. Once more, initiative is the decisive factor. Whoever launches earliest, whoever goes first, usually wins in these sprints because you're able to just outmuscle the opponent. It is the fact that it's equalized, the fact that it comes down to, can I break the draft, the spirit, and the legs of my opponents? And here, side by side, Beth not having much left. You can see Frank with a premature celebration. That was amazing racing all around. Now it's time for Mountain Bike by Jesper. Congratulations, Frank. We didn't get to hear from you after the last race, but that makes it 2 wins in a row. That one, though, you had to work for.
Oh, that was some brilliant racing. That was really fun. Beth faded. It's unfortunate. And then there got to be some blocking. And I got the upper hand on the blocks. So there's a time to block and there's a time to go. Anyway, it was really fun racing. It was really tactical. Whew.
That situation, though, you've got Cycling Hub riders everywhere. You got Beth up the road. We saw you chase for a bit when it was Nils and Timothy on your wheels. What went through your mind?
I'd hold first or second. If I just worked with them. And I didn't want Tim and Sebastian coming back. They got gapped. And there was a point where Tim was about to get back on, and I just went as hard as I could. I don't know if, I think Tim probably just opted not to catch the group. But then I made him pay for that. Or maybe he was tired, I don't know. But I wanted to keep those guys out of the mix. And then Timothy was struggling, and so I slammed on the brakes and then sprinted the gap. I thought I might have cost myself the race there, but I did get back on, and it did gap Timothy, so that worked out.
Very interesting racing. We've got Beth on there, and I want a word because Beth, absolute heartbreak at the very end. I think you chose the absolute right moment to go, but how did that feel?
Yeah, so the first mistake was hitting quantum shift. That just the timing of my sequencing. I wasn't going to fire all of them. I was going to see how much I could get with one of them, see if I could save another to, on the next lap, get a little more of a gap. On the final lap there, I could see Nils closing in, 3-4 seconds. So I was trying to watch the speed. And that's what, when people are still climbing and you're on the flat, if you can take advantage and try to just have a little bit more speed than those behind you, you can hold the gap. So I was trying to do that. And then by the time I got to the descent and you're sliding out in the lanes and you're trying to get back into the lane position, it's just a little bit of a congestion. So that takes practice, making sure that you have the open lane while you're sliding out and everyone's sliding out in front of you. So yeah, I wasn't able to go when I wanted to at the end, and I'm not sure I would have ever out-sprinted Frank anyway. So let me just say that caveat. It would be nice for me to pretend it was lane position. Frank would have taken me in the sprint, but it would have been nice to finish behind Frank ahead of Nils.
Save your breath, Beth. You've got plenty more racing to go. I mean, that took a lot of effort out of you. Sebastian, though, back in the racing. We bow to Seb. It's always great to have the judge back. Peter looked good as well. But here we go. The last time on Mountain Bike by Jesper, it really was the decisive race. And now we watch it again. Frank Garcia, usually the one to blow all his power-ups from the gun. This time, oh, never mind. Frank Garcia using everything. He's using wind at his back and power plant right from the gun. Quentin is there with him. Timothy's there with him. And so is Beth York. Peter Kastrup as well. Come on, Peter. You can do it. The Flying Dutchman. He's been flying with a ruptured flag. Can he repair it and get some wind back in the sails? Quentin Molinese. I think Quentin is racing this one just to intercept the front. We'll see if that's going to be the case. Timothy's up here now, further back in 6th. This is where Tim Fulford was last time as well, as he managed to bridge back a slower start, but then on this straightaway he got back up through the racing, winning the 2 first races. Frank Garcia is in the driving seat, but he is surrounded by Team Cycling Hub. There's one on the left. There's one on the back, and there's one on the back left. As Quinten accelerates through, Tim comes on the right as Frank slows down here, not wanting to crash. Quinten comes on through, and now the 3 Cycling Hub riders, they're coming out. I think they've got something to prove in this race. It feels like they're racing with absolute certainty in this one, with the fact that they want to make a statement. And so far, the purple, so the blue and orange is off the front. Quinten, etc. Further back, Alison Kubota with her second zone of racing. Cognition Queen is still in here racing now. She's got to make up a significant gap further up. Frank Garcia happy to sit here in 6th as Beth crashes. No! Just taking a turn there where maybe there wasn't any space. But Quinten versus Frank here. Quinten slows down the chasing group. Look at that gap. Quinten slams on the brake. And in the crossfire, Niels Heldens gets caught as well. But Quinten Molyneux as Niels then crashes down. Negative racing makes a difference, and now he takes Sebastian out as well. Oh, there will be some choice words. There was a very interesting post on CVRcade the other day saying, you left your team jersey in the wash. Now you have to go to another wardrobe and pick out another team's jersey. Which one do you pick? Nigel Doyle said, anyone but Cycling Hub. That is an interesting take here as Frank on the front slows down, coming through Kastrup corner. If we bring down the scoreboard, it is still very close on the front here. As Team Cycling has got Tim and Timothy. Frank still leading with a 14.5 points differential down to Timothy, but he is tied with Tim Fulford. If they change position, that'll be another 10 points to Timothy, which would put him 4.5 points behind Frank Garcia. Peter Kastrup, though, back in the racing. Here comes the man who's got a corner named after him on this exact course, side by side. The yellow jersey comes on through. Despite the crash, he is now starting his pursuit. And I think that's just putting more coal, putting more wood onto the fire here as the woodchucker Peter Kastrup here is slaying down some oak tree, passing by the lane, passing by the lake on the left. No time for fishing, because fishing he goes here after Cycling Hub riders. Power plant being used. Sebastian, former teammate of CCC, now Cognition using his power up as well. Wind at his back on the front. Tim Fulford remains loyal to Timothy. He's trying to help them out, but losing grab there a tiny bit. Timothy does usually do well on the higher skill events, but this one is a good mix of power, brains, and having the legs on the day. Frank, though, has got to be careful he doesn't slip further down, because Sebastian is there waiting to take more points away, as Peter has already passed him, and we're halfway through the race. There's only one more race after this. You heard Casey talk about seedings. You heard Frank talk about seedings. It's all about the seedings heading into the tournament, as Frank in 4th understands the threat that is Sebastian Kuhn, because he is flying and he's coming fast. Top left hand side of the picture, you can see the blue. He is going on now, and he's going to try and pass Frank, which is going to push him even further down, was placed into the hands of Timothy. But again, disjointed in the Cycling Hub ranks. Tim Fulford not opting to work with Timothy, but simply just leaving him in the dust. Not sure what the strategy is there, and more valuable points. So what they must be saying is that Tim has the legs. He's got the knowledge. He is the Dust Bowl crit king. And now he's 12.5 points behind Frank, as Frank has got a few racers catching up. So we look now, we got Tim, we've got Frank. This is the racing, this is the Omnium, 1st and 2nd. Tim uses wind at his back, he passes Guillermo saying, see you later, adios. It's Timothy, Peter, Frank. Frank now, he's being caught by Sebastian, he's got Homer. Is he going the wrong way? He's just gone through Kastrup corner, and more racing awaits. 2 laps remain. Next time they cross the finish line, that will be the start of the final lap. Tim Fulford out for blood. He won 3 races, but couldn't take the Omnium in the first zone. Now here in the second zone, he wants more. He wants to get up. Lapped rider Quinten Molyneux here just getting out of the way, but further back. Sebastian Kuhn has passed Frank, and the points differential is now down to 7.5, down to Tim Fulford. Sebastian Kuhn now, can he keep him at bay? Frank's got to be careful that Homer Thompson doesn't also get back on terms with this team CVRcade team leader. It is so close at the top, even between the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th, and the 6th, and even the 7th. Beth York here, despite an early crash, could fight to get back on terms. Peter Kastrup has passed Timothy Tamont. He's taking valuable points away. And the true point, the move here, like Timothy is still up there now as he passes Peter Kastrup. This is the last lap of racing. And Timothy with Peter side by side, the yellow and the red and orange. Peter accelerates. What does Timothy do? Peter's at 197 equalized heart rate, so he is feeling it. This is the last lap you gotta do coming into Dust Bowl Crit. Tim once more has got the advantage, a mountain bike by Jesper, but everyone's equalized heart rates are through the roof. As Frank Garcia has got to be careful. Wind at the back being used by Timothy. He wants to get out ahead of this. Both Tim and Timothy have got a shot at taking down the Goliath that is Frank Garcia. But can they do it? Can they execute when the time is needed? Homer has got a 5-second gap. He's coming back as well. We'll keep an eye, meanwhile, on the front as Timothy distances Peter. Tim has got one more corner left. You can see him looking up, just riding away, spinning out the legs, making sure to break in time to not crash coming into Kastrup corner, and then he can take... Does he wait for Timothy here? It looks like he may be waiting for Timothy. I think they're going to let Timothy take this victory, or not. I think it is. You see Timothy come on through, Tim Fulford allowing it, but then Tim needs to make sure that Peter Kastrup doesn't come by. So, 5th and 6th here. Homer Thompson's got a chance to take more points away from Frank. He's on the top left hand. You just can't see him, but the yellow jersey is there, but just not enough road left. This puts Timothy ahead of Frank, but into the last race, Dust Bowl Crit, it is still wide open. But that means Team Cycling Hub put all their eggs in one basket. Timothy Tamont, the chosen champion of Team Cycling Hub. Every time he gets under pressure, except that one time he won the Omnium, he seems to falter. Can today be the day it is different? Timothy Tamont, Tim Fulford, they must know something here. They've got faith in the mustache man, the king of the bottom left-hand corner. This will be fascinating. You can see Tim here slamming on the brakes, letting Timothy come on by. Timothy applauding his teammate for the good showmanship here of display of faith and ability. Timothy leading the race, getting the victory. How are you feeling with the pressure?
Oh, massive shout out to Tim for doing that. We didn't really communicate about it, but as soon as he started slowing down a little bit, I attacked Peter because I still had my power-ups, used the wind at your back on this headwind section, got a good gap, and then Tim waited for me. So it's time to finish this.
Now, Dust Bowl Crit, Timothy. I keep going back to the one-on-ones, the Saturday tournaments. You versus Kayla for the win, the grand finale. I think there was a crash or two in there this time.
Mostly no legs, I guess. That was.
Well.
Yeah. Dust Bowl Crit, 4 laps. So it's another long one, but I got this.
That's the spirit. I'll let you get back to your team chat to try and talk some strategy. We've also got Frank. Frank, it looked very good for you coming into the race. Leaving the race, there are some points left up for grabs. What happened to you in that previous race?
I'm just tired from the previous effort. So, and as I said, Jesper requires just a ton of energy. And so we'll see if conservation or expenditure paid off in the last race. So I think Timothy and Tim expended some energy, and I saved a little bit. We'll see how it plays out on Dust Bowl.
We'll see. Thank you, Frank. Now we've got Tim in 3rd place. Tim, the decision to slow down and wait for Timothy, when did you make it, and how come you came to that decision?
I made it about halfway through the last lap. I hadn't spoken to Timothy about it, but I saw that he got a 4-second gap over Peter. If he hadn't got the gap, I would have taken the win just to secure the points. But I kind of felt that there was enough time between Timothy and Peter for me to get second. Puts Timothy in a stronger position. I've already won one Omnium tonight, and if I have a good race here, I can still finish on the podium. So it was a bit of a team play to put everyone in their strongest position. Niels is in 4th as well, so we'll just see what happens. I've enjoyed racing tonight, even though I may have had some medical incidences during it, but all good.
I was going to mention Niels because as a team captain, Team Cycling was really coming together with Quentin, Chris, Timothy, and you now. I mean, you're looking like a really strong unit.
Yeah, like maybe if we all spoke to each other through the game's audio rather than listening to our own music and just racing and guessing what the other people are doing, we might do even better. But no, we have fun. We have a good chat about it. We all kind of understand what people are good at. When people are tired and stuff. So, no, it's good fun, and it's good to see Team Cycling Hub racing with Cognition and Vixen and CVR and Team X. So, no, it's good.
Well, good luck, Tim, and the rest of Cycling. Thanks for taking the time to speak to me. 10 seconds remain, and now the last race of the day. Dust Bowl Crit is gonna get started. Timothy Tamont, Frank Garcia are 1 and 2. Tim Fulford down in 3rd. He's got the opportunity for a good result here, but I think we'll look towards the likes of CCC. I think Sebastian and Peter here are poised for a good result on the last race of the day. They've been getting stronger. They've been getting better, especially Peter in that last race. And I think Sebastian of Cognition, he's going to not want to leave this one empty-handed as he moves on up. Quinton Molyneux hits the front early. Timothy on the wheel of Frank. You do have the 7 kilometers an hour wind. You can see it blowing as Sebastian falls down. Early crash from Sebastian. Beth York as well crashes. Early crashes all around. And those are the toughest ones to overcome when you're just getting going. Frank Garcia already a bit of an early lead there. As Timothy being forced to accelerate on the left. But off he goes. Now, between Frank and Timothy, they both have this as their preferred zones. They both race and broadcast in with audio and matching kits. You can see them. What they wear in the game is what they wear on the stream as well. So bonus points essentially just cancel each other out. So whoever performs better on the leaderboard between, oh, it's Peter! I know, I can just feel the hurt from here as that road rash will last days, if not weeks, both in the mental and the physical, as Timothy moves up into second place and connects. Allison here with a good final performance of Zone L. As she now gets passed by Tim, she takes a more conservative approach. So whoever finishes better on the Omnium, Timothy or Frank will take that result. But you look at Frank. He's got 2 Cycling Hub members ahead of him. He's got 2 behind him. It's at moments like this you wish Rig Woods was racing. You wish Kayla Laguna was out there. Rene Valadez, Vanessa Murahan. But Frank Garcia all alone, surrounded by blue and orange. As you've got Tim trying to force a mistake out of Frank, causing him to slow down. Now he hits the wheel of Tim Fulford. How do they play this one? Frank's got to be careful of a block. Timothy hits the front here. He's up here with Quinton Molyneux already at 192. If I was Timothy right now, you book it. You give it. You've got a gap. Now you got to extend it. You've got the help of Tim Fulford on the back. But Tim is accelerating into the wind, leaving Frank. So instead of choosing the negative racing, he opts for a more positive effect, saying, you know what? I could mess with Frank. I could annoy him. But what really helps out the team is that if I bridge to the front group, I get in front of my teammates and I just start working with them. Maybe even I can move up into second place and we can take not only first but also second. All 3 Cycling members, they've got to be careful they don't make a mistake here. Frank, further back, Peter Kastrup in the yellow. What will Frank do? You get 1 path, 1 wind at your back, and 1 inertia. Frank tries to bridge across. Nils is there. Right now, it is so incredibly tense. Frank is forced to use a path of least resistance. This is not where we usually see Frank Garcia. The legs are giving up ever so slightly here from the Team Green leader here. He is off the back. The power's not quite there. He takes a more relaxed approach as that straight finish is so tough. Coming in here is a tailwind that they get, going right into a crosswind, and I think the hill goes into a headwind. So they have to push that bit harder. Nils comes on through. It solidifies Nils' 4th place. Tim now goes into 2nd place. Team cycling up 1, 2, and 3, but also 4 right now. So the blue and orange have got a chance. Tim accelerating through the top here, slowing down a tiny bit as the headwind is ever so hard on their face. Sebastian Kuhn, Peter Kasher. Peter, despite 2 crashes, is moving through, but we look back to our Lone Ranger, Frank Garcia. Can he withstand the siege? He needs to get back on top. He's almost there. And I think, oh, Quinton goes down. One less Cycling Hub rider to contest with as we watch Frank Garcia now. He's 7 points ahead of Tim. Those were very valuable points that Quinton let go. A mistake that he didn't have to make, as now Timothy and Frank side by side. Timothy, gotta tip my hat to him. So far he's been good. Frank, here he goes. Weightlifter, wind at his back. He gets ready for the inertia. How high will he go? 53 is the answer. He passes Tim. He now catches Timothy. Timothy hits the block. Timothy, you could see Frank with the relief, with the side going, oh, I should have been there. Timothy negates the inertia, and advantage now goes to Timothy. But further down, Tim Fulford, what does he have left? He's still got his power-ups. Timothy with the inertia there was crucial because it changes the dynamics. What happened was that Frank with the inertia went right on through, and he decided that was the moment to use it. If he comes over the top, not only does Frank apply the pressure, but he also forces Timothy to react, which is more likely. Now you can see Tim and Frank side by side. Oh, just dodging wheels. That was very close. Tim trying to force a mistake out of Frank. We've seen it earlier today with Frank on other riders, and now we see, oh, Tim is forcing Frank to take the long way around here as they're having a track incident. Does Frank even go for the inside lane? No. Sebastian is coming back. Peter, despite 2 crashes, is coming back. But here they go. Frank and Timothy. Timothy, though, he starts to just let go a tiny bit when you get into the later stages of the racing. And this is wide open. If you're sitting with your popcorn, your beverage of choice, I hope you've got another one right next to you, because time is going to pass like that. It's going to be so quick. Frank has caught back up. Timothy has got the power-ups, and that may be the only saving grace. Because I think if Frank was to go around Timothy, that might be a dagger. That might be a punch he may not be able to block here. As Sebastian, Peter, you can see the blue and the yellow. They're returning back in. The headwind climb is coming up any moment now. We go further back into the group. Tim comes on through. He wants to try and avoid the congestion. Side by side is a top 3. More iconic image you're not going to find. Frank on the inside, Timothy on the far left, and the maestro in the middle. Tim Fulford is now going to get passed by Sebastian Kuhn. Peter slams into the back, but on the front, 2nd and 1st, Frank Garcia leading by 2.5 points now. This is gonna go down to the wire. Timothy trying to force a mistake out. He doesn't get it. Side by side again. Timothy versus Frank. This has been a day for the ages when it comes to CVRcade World Cup racing. Now Frank's turn to try and force a mistake out of Timothy. He doesn't get it. 2.8 kilometers remain. Will we see an inertia here from Timothy? We do not, but further down, Sir Peter Castro, 1500. He uses it so early, but so does Sebastian. 54 k's an hour. They're taking valuable points away because I believe Frank needs to win. Peter over the top, Sebastian over the top, and the blue and yellow are off the front. How will Timothy, how will Tim, how will Frank react to this now? Because from one moment to the other, you're leading. But now when everyone comes back, that first place, the points you need to move on up on Timothy seem to perhaps just be out of reach. We'll see. 5 seconds off the back now, 2.3. I don't think there's much left in the tank. The stage win is still very much up for grabs as we come through Boulder Alley. The secondary positions, I mean, Tim was in 2nd place, But with Sebastian moving up and Niels moving up, they'll take points. But Tim does have the streaming points that fall into his advantage. But I think Cycling Hub, they'll want to win this one. One lap remains. Timothy has got his power-ups still remaining. He's got inertia. He's got everything. He's going to need to really activate it here. As Timothy moves on up, passes Niels, he needs the points. Tim accelerates. So does Timothy. Path of least resistance. Cycling Hub looks so good. Peter, despite 2 crashes, has come back to get into second place. Frank is in an uphill battle, quite literally here on the right. He looks over the shoulder, no help to be given. Really missing Kale Laguna today. Tim on the front. He's now chasing down Peter Kastrup, Sebastian Kuhn. They're at 197. I think Tim still has his powers remaining as well. On this last lap, you'll see Cycling Hub unleash with their inertias. Will it be enough? How much of a gap has Sebastian Kuhn accumulated at that point? If they haven't caught him, Frank goes out the back door, and Frank's second place is also in danger here. Tim can take second place away from Frank here. Frank's got to keep fighting, but at this point, how much do you have left? You've raced so much, you've gone so deep into the headwind, up the hills, against the power-ups, outmanned, outgunned, out everything here at this point. Sebastian Kuhn, Peter Castro, Tim Fulford, Timothy Tamont. Timothy's got to be careful here, because him and Frank, they're still fighting for secondary positions. I think, wait. I think here, Frank passes Timothy. It's a swing of 8 points. It still may not be enough, but it's still close. It's still very close. Why has math got to be so difficult? Sebastian on the front. Here is where I think Tim, if he's got inertia, he'd be loading it up, and he is. 1,000 equalized watts. He's going to push it. 47.7 is where we see it. Now further back, Timothy Tamont, 1,000 equalized watts. He's going to push it up. He's going to get all the way up to 53.6, and that is the final nail in the coffin, bearing any crashes. Timothy and Tim are first and second. Tim is currently second by 0.5 of a point here. It's going to take some finessing here to figure out exactly how the racing is going to unfold. But Sebastian has still got a gap. Despite the inertia from Tim, Tim wants this win. You can see 1,200 equalized. He's running out of real estate. Location. And right now, it is in Sebastian's favor. Blue on the front. Blue and orange in the chase. First into the corner. First out of the corner. Sebastian kicks up again. He is back. And he is back in business here. Timothy Tamont, Tim Fulford. They look good to take the Omnium. But who will close out the night? Sebastian comes through the corner. Forced to deaccelerate. Will Tim give it one last try? No. Sebastian Kuhn will take the win. But at the end of the day, it is Team Cycling Hub with 1 and 2 on the podium. Peter Kastrup, Nils Heldens will be next. Timothy Tamont with his very iconic applause. And he will take yet another victory. Timothy Tamont coming into his own here, taking the zone victory. The right decision looked to have been made on mountain bike by Jesper. Frank will take third ahead of Sebastian Kuhn. Nils Heldens may have been wondering what could have been. But the story of the day come the closing time is that Sebastian Kuhn is back. Peter Kastrup is back. I mean, this bracketed session is about to get real hot. This is about to get fascinating. We've got the highlights showing up here as we watch the sprint. Tim tried to close the gap. He accelerated, but every move, you just saw Sebastian having a counter move. Whew. Let the racers catch their breath. You catch your breath out there. If you're at the edge of your seat, you may not even notice it. Look down. You literally are. Maybe scoot back a tiny bit. Rest up. Click the follow button down below. If you've been inspired and you want to try this, CVRcade.com is the place to be to get involved in the racing. The platform is free to play. As we've got Tim Fulford crossing the line in first. Timothy Tamont here next on up. Timothy, congratulations, winning yet another Omnium. Everything seems to be clicking for you recently. This is not just something that happens one-off. You're now making a trend of it. What are we going to see from the Terminator?
Just in time, huh? Oh man, that last race, I was so drained. I think that block on Frank when he used his inertia, that was the point where I knew, okay, not only physically but mentally, it takes a lot. Like, it's the same thing he did on me, because I was struggling on Fantastic Alien Sea, and then he blocked me when I just got back, and it drains you mentally so hard. So good that I got the payback there, and yeah, cheers to the team, Tim, Nils, Quinton. Great job, guys.
It does seem that when you bring out the big guns, Chris Pritchard too, you do perform. Is that the case? Like, how much does the team help you in a win like this?
Oh, a lot. Without the teamwork, I would not have won this. I might have gotten like third or fourth, but without Tim giving me that win on mountain bike by Jasper, and then this race, this was so hard. 4 laps, man. I'm drained.
I'll let you catch your breath. But the question is, before you go, what sort of food are you going to have after this? We always see you eating prior to the racing. What's the post-race celebration dinner?
I ate before the race, so maybe nothing really much tonight. But tomorrow, oh boy, tomorrow is a feast. 6 days of Ghent. Oh, we're digging in tomorrow. Lots of mineral waters.
It'll be good to see Timothy return on Thursday with.
Oh no, on Thursday. I'll be in Ghent again.
Enjoy, Timothy. Second place. Let's just get to hear from the winner, the second place on the stage. But overall, the night probably the highest score across both zones. Tim, congratulations. You must be quite proud. I do think if you don't take the win, or if you do take the win on mountain bike, I think you finished first. So it's a collective win for Team Cycling Hub today.
Yeah, I'm happy with it. It's not like I'm happy. I mean, team performance is good. Timothy, it's good to give him a win. He earned it on Fantastic Alien Sea by working hard. He worked strategically on mountain bike to get away from Peter, and then I just did what I could. Frank was super strong in the second Omnium, and like in Zone L, I'd already done Zone K, so it's tough. But you just got to hang in there. Like where Peter and Seb came from, I have no idea, but fantastic effort from them. It was good racing all around. I'm now going to go and eat my body weight in pizza, I think.
It's good to have you back, Tim. We've missed you. I'm excited to see what more you can do. You've got some points to make up after being gone for a week, but I'm sure if someone can do it, it's you. But as you mentioned, Sebastian and Peter, they're back. Let's get the final word from Frank Garcia. What's the big takeaway from you today, Frank? You commentated the first zone. Here in the second zone, you were up against it.
Well, first of all, congratulations to Cycling Hub. Great racing by the team in Zone L. Much more positive. I guess Cycling Hub can learn as well as everybody else. So I think they took first and second, and I thought that was really great. Timothy really earned that win, and Tim certainly helped out. I finished third by 0.5, so that was great team tactics by Cycling Hub to move me down the podium. So that was really, really good. I thought that was great racing. And that Omnium, those 4 courses, look to be on the finals. I think because those are in a little bit longer. Those are 4 tough courses back to back. Wow.
What do you think the repercussions is going to be? Because like you heard Casey on here visibly and also verbally agitated. How do you think this is going to affect? Because we're racing again on Thursday with some of the similar actors in the similar zones. What do you think is going to happen?
I think there's been this long arc for more positive racing, and I think you saw that coming to fruition. I think Cycling Hub changed their tactics a little bit. And much more positive. And you see 4 guys on the front absolutely killing it, hammering away. And you can do a little bit of blocking to get some gaps and whatnot. I thought they did that, really skillfully. So I think you'll see more and more positive racing. You'll still see the blocking comes into play strategically at times. But if you're doing it all the time, you're really holding yourself back more than you're holding the other people back. And one note. I think Timothy thought he stole my spirit. I was tired, but I was very glad he blocked me. I don't know if people realize this, but if you use I used my inertia late, and I was actually looking for him to block me. So I got by the first two, and hoped he blocked me so I wouldn't crash in that corner. So a little tip to all the racers, sometimes a block is good.
Next level mind games, because even if that isn't true, next time Timothy will go, maybe I shouldn't block him, maybe I used inertia, maybe he didn't use inertia. So next level mind games. Thanks, Frank. Let's load up all the highlights, because we've had 2 great zones of racing today, and let's run through them right here one last time. Zone K. Oh my goodness, have I ever seen fireworks like this. The post-race interviews were lit. That's the first time ever we were on Electric Rush, and it was interesting to see because everybody was a bit hesitant in the way they were racing this. They couldn't believe the finish line were coming up, and quite frankly, even I lost my footing, and you can see Casey giving it everything here to come to the finish line. He does end up second in the race, and as he tries to figure out where he finishes, but, I mean, what we saw on Fantastic Alien Sea, that will be discussed internally, externally, across the different forums. I mean, this one is going to be a conversation starter. I mean, this is next level. Quentin attacked very early on. A brave move here, as you see the 2 different people, Casey chasing Quentin on the left. Their arc of rivalry has really progressed in the last week or so as they race Zone K against each other in their preferred zones. Carl Axel Sander also coming to his own. He's been really, really good lately. But the way the racing unfolded, do you take a turn? Do you not take a turn? You've got riders in a breakaway. Do you not do it? Do you race negatively? I mean, look at Casey. Casey is a lovable guy. It's not often you see him visibly agitated. He's on the stream, laughing, making hand gestures, telling people to work together. But here, I mean, it's just a whole different world. And this is when you're racing for money. And we see people in Zone K opting for the negative style of racing, and then Zone L, suddenly the positive racing came out to play as Mountain Bike by Jesper. I think a key sentence by Frank there saying, watch out for this set of races. They may very well be used in the tournament. And if you listen to that and you heard that gold nugget, I would write these down and I would practice them, because now you've raced them, and you know they may come up again. You know where to keep an eye on for drafts, for wins, for power-ups, for moves. Because once you start racing, because the winner of the Elite Omnium Series finale will take $3,000 home. That is a lot of dough to make bread from. And you only get that if you put in the hours, the sweat, the tears, and the frustration, because it fosters some more active recovery on the platform to understand what could you do better, because every move has a counter move. Casey thumbs up, Tim Fulford takes the win on Mountain Bike by Jesper. Then coming into the last one, it was a bit of a puzzle here. How would Tim Fulford take the win? He had 3 wins in this Omnium, yet Casey Shum, who there was a bit of banter back and forth, a bit of fire, saying congratulations, second place. So I guess that's all you got to do to win. It's good to watch, and it's good to see some friendly fire back and forth. Tim here on the right forcing a mistake out of Frank Garcia. But a big downfall today was numbers, teammates. Having teammates would make all the difference. Now, Casey did go on to win Zone K, but he was missing teammates. Team Cycling Hub today and Velocity Vixen to some extent were always in a favorable position because they had numbers. They had more riders to make decisions with. They had more bodies to throw on the line. Casey laughing all the way to the bank here as he realizes with bonus points he would take the Omnium. He'd take those points heading into the seeding of the final week of racing. So teammates, if you're not currently on a team, if you're missing teammates, go recruit. I mean, go out there, get some riders on the platform, because they can be the difference maker between you winning nothing and winning $3,000. That's just in the bracketed session. The finale, I believe, has a $5,000 prize purse in the tournament. You gotta bake those muffins, chocolate chip or raisins, whatever you're into. You gotta go out there and get the recipe for success. Speaking of which, Tim Fulford trying something new here, but a bit too much flour in this one as he gets caught in 4th place. Solid points in the front. In the end, he ends up beating Frank by 0.5 of a point on the leaderboard, and this is where the assault started, with Timothy Tumont taking 2nd place, Frank Garcia in 1st, and we get to see that celebration. He is mirroring the avatar in the game, as he's also doing it in real life. Fantastic Alien Sea the second time around. The blocking did start early on. Quinton blocking not only once but twice, which made Frank go on to the attack, but Beth York was the one to attack when everything came back together. And it's a very great tactical move from Beth York to attack, but when you're up against some of these races and they get working together, Frank here blocking Timothy. I mean, the gameplay is evolving, the strategies are evolving, the meta is non-stop changing. Frank Garcia slamming on the brakes to open up the gap, which forces Timothy to put out an effort he doesn't want to do, and that, in the long term, lets him go. The sprint finish on Alien Sea, I think a lesson is to be learned here. Go early, go long in a descent like this. You keep seeing them try to come into the finish line, and Frank Garcia just absolutely nailed it. Broke the draft. Nils and Beth never knew what hit him before. It was all over. Mountain bike, 2nd time up. I mean, it was a tough day for those that did 2 races back to back. Frank Garcia taking the first one in the commentary booth, not extending his streak of winning zones after commentating the previous zone here. So that did end today, as we see Allison further back than up on the front. A crash here from Beth York as she tried to move back in, but did not see Peter Kastrup, the Flying Dutchman, who, by the way, I am ecstatic to have Sebastian back. I am ecstatic to have Peter Kastrup back, because we're racing equalized. It doesn't matter if you have the quads of Robert Fasterman. It doesn't matter if you got the biceps of The Rock, Dwayne Johnson. It doesn't matter. You could be Kevin Hart sized, and you can compete competitively on CVRcade, which is why it makes it such of a compelling platform. Anyone can win. Comes down to how much are you willing to suffer. Do you have the teammates? Do you have the knowledge? All these variables, as Tim Fulford allows Timothy to come on through. Story there as well is that Tim kind of gives his teammate a win, so maybe feeding, other team members for when it comes to matter, when the money is on the line, there's no more gifts. So maybe Tim letting Timothy have this one to instir some, some loyalty within the ranks and say, let's share the love. Everybody works equally. You heard Tim say that Timothy worked for it on Fantastic Alien Sea. This iconic shot, put it on a poster, frame it on your wall. Cycling Hub and Team CVRcade World Cup racing history being made as Timothy Tumont, inertia coming on through. In the end, Sebastian Kuhn, the judge, he wasn't sure if he was going to make the racing today, but he does, and he takes points for the overall rankings. If you have enjoyed the racing today, I will remind you so kindly again to click that follow button down below. It takes you 2 seconds, and it means whenever we go live, you get a notification. You'll never miss another drama-full, action-packed, epic day of CVRcade World Cup racing. Timothy Tumont, on that note, will close out the night. This has been 2 hours of non-stop action in the CVRcade World Cup. We're back later on tonight. Beth York jumps into the studio and she will continue with more broadcasting for Zone T. We're live in 7 hours from now. Set your alarm or just click the follow button down below. But until then, we'll see you. But no, Beth York goes crashing down. Determination, the suffering, the ability to... And she's unleashed everything in this attack. See just how much that win means to him. All the marvels. Kayla versus Allison, and to the line. Kayla Laguna takes the victory.